Retro.
Hi, this is Fred Tatasciore, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. The Force is strong with both of them.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we are going to wrap up our coverage of Volume 3 of Visions in this episode. But before we get to the final episodes there, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everyone where we can be found on social media?
Absolutely. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
Okay, the dish is aligned, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So, like I just said, we're going to be talking about the last two episodes of Volume 3, which are The Bird of Paradise and Black. I don't know about you, Jay. I don't know if they intended it this way, but these were the exact two episodes to pair together at the end, I think, because they kind of have a surreal way of contemplating fate and the end and that type of stuff going on here. And this will make more sense as we discuss the two episodes. Not to spoil the whole discussion here, but of the pairs of episodes we discussed, this is my least favorite pairing that we've done here. But what did you think?
Yeah, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, right? But no, I like the way that you put it in the surrealism and, conquering fate, if you will. But I
Yeah.
think we're going to have a fairly different idea, at least of one of these. So
Well, I don't know.
get
I don't know
into
about
it.
that. I know one of them we're going to go completely because we
We
talked a
both.
little bit about outline, but
Yes.
we'll get to that one in a second here. The first one is The Bird of Paradise, and that was by Polygon Pictures. And a brief summary is Nakime, who is a hot-headed Jedi Padawan, is blinded in a battle with a Sith apprentice. While she attempts to survive in her new condition and find her way, she goes through a spiritual journey in which she learns to put her immaturity behind her and accept that the possibility that she may die, that all things die, and that those type of feelings are always going to be with her there. So it is it's an interesting episode, an interesting installment here, because it really does kind of address the attachment thing in a way that Anakin never could in this. It was I found it very apropos after we spent this like entire year talking about Revenge of the Sith that we got this episode within a Padawan confronting this idea and then ultimately coming around that you can fight against this, and she nearly embraces the dark side to do so, but in the end she puts that fear behind her and moves on. But anyways, what's your big takeaway from this episode?
Yeah, I love that you address that in framing it around attachment, because her attachment in this perspective, I guess you could say, was her inner self, in her view of the Force and the way that she, saw herself in it. I will say this particular episode, it completely won me over. I loved it.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of it is just the fact that I don't want to give too much away for the next episode, but maybe unlike the next one, there
Mhm.
was a lot more weight involved with this. There was a lot more investment in the character herself, especially, was it Nakime, I think, or
Mhm.
Nakime is how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure. But at any rate, I thought that it was kind of the turning of the classic hero's journey kind of inside out.
Right.
And I thought that was cool. And you know me, I love anything having to do with the inner psyche and the motivations that create what someone does. And I thought there was a lot of symbolism in this one that, pulls out not only some traditional Star Wars symbolism that we see a lot. I don't want to call them tropes necessarily, but also a lot of Japanese traditional kinds of
Yeah.
symbolism as well, which I really, really appreciated all of that. And I thought it was very visually stunning. I loved it.
Yeah, don't misconstrue what I said up the top of that, that about this being the worst pairing of episodes, because I did like this one, but when you go through and you look at the way we broke down these episodes, there was 9 of them. So we did the dual payback by itself, and then we've done 2 episodes at a time. If you had to look at any one of our reviews, this is my least favorite collection of episodes. Not that
Mhm.
this one is bad, but the one that comes after just brings down the average way, way low. And we can quit beating around the bush on that. And yeah, well, we'll get to black when we get to black. But at any rate, yeah, no,
Fair.
this is not a bad episode. It is an interesting spiritual journey, and if I had more time to devote to looking into the Japanese themes and looking into the Japanese style of storytelling, I probably would appreciate it more than I did. I didn't dislike it. I really did like the message. I thought it was well, take a step back. The art style here, I thought, was some of the most sophisticated amongst any
Mhm.
of the episodes of Volume 3 that we got. It was crisper than just about anything that we got. It seemed much more computer generated compared to everything else. And the way they handled her blindness and the way that she saw things, you could see when she was having a vision, because her eyes would be open and unscarred and she'd be seeing things, versus when she was making her way, it was like she was in a shadow realm, and whatever she was coming into physical contact with, her other senses would come to life in a certain type of way. I thought that was really incredibly well done, and
Yes.
it put you in her place and helped you go on that vision with her. I wish I had gone back and actually watched this one a second time. I just was pressed for time this week, so I didn't get a chance to, and made note of all the little chapter titles, because this thing was 20 minutes long, but it was broken down to like 6 parts in that 20 minutes. And she was experiencing something every day as she went on her quest there after she was blinded. Um, that really did tell a story about her, because she was kind of also going through like the stages of grief here, right?
Mhm.
She was this
Mhm.
hot-headed Padawan. She and her master are fighting this warrior. She gets blinded. She goes over a cliff, and then she can't see, and she feels abandoned. And she's convinced that the Sith Lord is going to show up and kill her at any moment, and this, which doesn't happen. But it's her dealing with this. She wants to still live, but oh, now at one point she's like, oh, I think I found a suit force, but what's the point? I'm just going to die here anyway, But then it is a worthwhile journey of self-exploration and growth.
Yes, indeed. And I think it's interesting how you were talking about grief and
Mhm.
that there are, stages of grief as well. And I think that that's kind of what Nakime was going through as she was embracing her, rise and fall of her inner self, so to speak. And I
Mhm.
actually did write down the chapters. So the first was a prologue, and then day 1 was the day of insolence. Day 2 was desire, 3 was indignation, 4 was the day of idleness, and 5 was a prayer for life and epilogue.
Yeah, which seems like a condensed version of talking about the stages of grief, very much.
Exactly.
Right,
Mhm.
and acceptance, because at the end, she you know, she's confronting that vision of the Sith warrior, but it's like kind of her alternate self. And the point is that she says she gets the whole thing, that everything's eventually dies. She can't necessarily be afraid of death. But that fear is going to be with her the entire time. If that's going to be part of her journey, it's what she does with it. Unlike Anakin, who tries to bend the galaxy to his will so that he can overcome that on Padme's behalf, she understands that, as Yoda tries to tell Anakin at one point in Revenge of the Sith, it's like, don't mourn them, rejoice for those that pass into the force. Again, not necessarily the greatest advice, and perhaps clumsily delivered by Yoda, but it is part of life. It is part of the journey. And if you are living out of fear of the end, you're not really living at the same time.
Right. Right, absolutely. And there's so much in here too with, as you mentioned with her blindness
Hmm.
that I mean, we've seen blind characters in Star Wars before. I mean, Chirrut Îmwe, Kanan, Ram Koda, And there's always kind of that basic storyline that says, well, it's not in what you can physically see, it's what you're seeing through the force. And
Right.
again, like you were saying, that's part of her journey into what she needed to uncover. And I also appreciate the fact that when she was in the spirit world, so to speak, that when she was fighting with herself, aka her inner voice, which was manifested as that Sith apprentice, um I think it was Aman was her name.
Right.
She had these markings on her, and they start as she was overcoming a lot of those things, she was losing those markings. So what I was thinking was that those markings were almost a representation of her own decay. And
Mhm.
once she finally accepted the truth and let go of that former self, that's when the decay started to go away. And then she started to be kind of reborn. It's almost like the bird of paradise is similar to the phoenix, if you think
Mhm.
about it,
Yeah.
like the rebirth thing.
I know if you go to StarWars.com and you look at the episode guide for this, they have the featurette that dips into these themes, but it goes by so fast that I could not pick it all up
Oh, okay. I
and
need
make.
to watch that. I haven't seen it
Yeah.
yet.
And I mean, it's about 2 minutes, and they just kind of hit the highlights and what the development of all this was and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I like this one a lot. Um, that being said, there's just a lot of other episodes that I like better than this one, but it is an interesting episode. I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the little toad that
Yes.
shows up, which was their Yoda stand-in in a way. This neon fluorescent toad that shows up
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
kind of gives some advice. What did you? And they just call it Toad. If you click turn
Yep.
on the closed captioning here, so what did you think of Toad?
Oh, he was a total Yoda stand-in
Yeah.
for sure. And just throwing out things like, "It is your heart that is blind, and you will never take a false step if you let it guide you," meaning the Force. These are
Mhm.
all things that, very Yoda-esque sorts of things. But again, I also think of that as kind of being the Jiminy Cricket, the conscience kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's part of what was at play there.
Yeah. It's funny. As a complete aside, I was doing the New York Times crossword puzzle yesterday morning because we're recording this on the 4th, and a bunch of the puzzles were music titles from various artists from the last 60 some odd years. And they weren't working out until you get to the very last clue, which is, it's a sci-fi philosopher that would not be good at karaoke. And the answer to that was Yoda. And so but so you had to do all the song titles as if Yoda would have said them. So A Girl I Kissed, and I liked it, that,
Oh, that's too funny.
yeah. And so it was just kind of funny because I was doing that crossword and then I watched this episode right after. And anyways, this is all mixed up in my mind at the moment. But
Love
so
that.
for me, this is a B plus episode, I think. I liked it. It's not one that I can envision myself revisiting real frequently. It's got a good theme. I like the animation style, but there's a number of other episodes that I prefer from this volume. But how about you?
Now for me, I don't know what it is about this episode, but like I said, it totally won me over. It got me hook, line, and sinker. And I only got a chance to watch it once as well, but I want to watch it again. For me, there were just so many different themes in here. We've talked about rain and water, with the
Yeah.
baptism, the fact that she ingested some of the water and it was like foul and making her sick. And then she had to basically regurgitate that to cleanse herself. And then the plants and the tree, I thought of the giving tree,
Mm,
with that. And then there was at one point where she was walking on water, and it reminded me of Volmir, when Gamora died and this whole soul stone thing and the rebirth in that way too. So I felt like there was just, I don't know, there was just things that hit me in this particular episode that I just was really, really digging and I was really on board with. So I give this one an A for me.
fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, if I watched it again, I probably would have rated it higher. But the reason why I didn't watch it again is because that meant that Black would have been up again on my queue, and I didn't want to watch it again, and I didn't want to have it sitting there on my queue in Disney Plus to finish watching. Okay, that's really harsh. I have read several people's thoughts on this episode online, and this really, and everyone says the same thing. Your mileage may vary. This is something that you're going to love how abstract it is and the way it delivers its message. And it's going to mean something to you, and you're going to want to watch it again and again. Or you're going to be me, and you just didn't appreciate it. It just does not resonate with you. And is that fair? I think it is, actually. I mean, this is not what I want out of Star Wars when it comes down to it. This is something, I don't even know how to phrase it. But okay, so let's get into it. This is from David Production, and I took the summary right off of, paraphrased it right off of the StarWars.com, which is on the cusp of defeat aboard the Death Star. A stormtrooper experiences a psychedelic journey that intertwines the past and present, life and light and dark, and life and death. I just didn't like it, Jay. I mean, I know you weren't particularly fond of it either. I mean,
No.
I think I texted you as like, I didn't want to do the podcast before the podcast, but I just watched that last episodes of Visions, WTH question mark.
Yep.
And your response was much of the same in return. And what baffles me, of all of the episodes they could have picked from volume 3, this was like the one in the weeks leading up to the release that they were talking about so much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't even know where to start on this. Okay, I'm going to be nice. There's some things I liked. This was set around the second Death Star and Return of the Jedi. And so there was some battle imagery there, which was interesting. And they kept coming back to like the same image of the Star Destroyer crashing into the Death Star. But then there was all the other stuff that was going on, random eyeballs showing up all over the place, a
Mhm.
jazz soundtrack, which didn't work for me at all in this. One of the things I read about this, someone who liked it, is that if you like jazz, you can interpret this through jazz and it'll make sense to you. I was like, well, I don't know enough about jazz, clearly, because that didn't help at all. But okay, I'm rambling. I'm being harsh. What do you have to say about this?
Well, first of all, I just have to say that I love the fact that we've been podcasting long enough that I know your opinion just by the sound of your sigh.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. But no, I am totally with you on here. And here's the thing, I went on record by saying I was I can't even talk, genuinely excited about this particular episode. And I even started with it. And I told you, I'm like, I was so excited. I watched this one first. I skipped right to it. And then I told you, I was like, yeah, that was kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
And because I usually like some of these weird psychedelic interpretations of this kind of stuff, but I mean, this one really just kind of went off the rails on a crazy train for me. But I do think that I admire the risk. Let's put it that way. I
Oh
think
yeah.
it
Big
definitely
swing.
pushes, yeah, boundaries visually, tonally, unlike anything that we've ever seen before. It, for me personally, it just didn't pay off. And I think that that is probably because I kept waiting for some kind of character moment, some kind of an emotional anchor, and I didn't get one. And I know that that probably wasn't the point, but there wasn't even, for me anyways, there wasn't even a clear thread or any kind of motivation to latch onto to even just make the chaos matter to me.
Mhm.
And I just kind of more confused than curious at the very end of it. But like I said, I admired the risk and I loved the idea of what it was trying to be. But for me, I just wish the execution had matched the potential that I was really ready for. And I just didn't get that.
Yeah. I mean, so this is told from the point of view of a stormtrooper who's missing an arm, and I'm not
Hmm.
even sure what that's about. His helmet is half gone,
Hmm.
and he's got he's like running away from himself as best I can tell. And there's they kind of outline in one version of him in green and the other one in red. And the one that's in red is constantly pursuing him and trying to fight him and also like make him give up as best I can tell, where the green one is still struggling for life. I mean, this is the most clumsy explanation I can give about this episode, but it's just when it was done is like I didn't appreciate it enough to go back and watch it again. And so I know that sounds harsh, and to do this justice, I probably needed to watch it a second time. But it's the reason why I didn't watch The Bird of Paradise again,
Hmm.
because I looks like if I watch that one, then I have to watch this one a second time just to get off my queue, and I don't want to do that. And because I watched this one while riding the exercise bike, and at the end I was like, what did I just watch? And
Mhm.
that's not in a good way. You can say those words in a good way and a bad way. But it's just I don't know. There's some imagery that suggests that the stormtrooper has got some regrets. It's like he's seeing his whole life flash between his life before
Yeah.
his eyes. And at one point there's like, it's almost like Anakin and Padme having the picnic, and he's with some woman in a field, but you never get a clear view of her. But he's thinking back to that moment, and it's like he's trying to escape this impending doom to maybe revisit that. I'm not certain here.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I feel, I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm disappointing our listeners because I can't explain this. I could not invest myself enough to watch it a second time to really have a great discussion about it. It was a turnoff when I watched it the first time.
I think you did a good job though just now of trying to relate it to, something that was kind of like in the Bird of Paradise where it was sort of an inner self
Hmm.
monologue in a lot of
Yeah,
ways, and the life flashing before his eyes is, I think, a good analogy. Because yeah, now that you say that, I can totally see where that's coming from. It's almost in a way maybe sort of the same kind of idea, and I'm reaching here,
sure.
but maybe like what Finn was thinking when he regretted becoming a stormtrooper, and he didn't want to live that life, and now here's the stormtrooper at kind of the end of his rope, literally. Maybe he's been mortally injured, as we see from the helmet and the loss of the arm and that type of thing, and so he's regretting those life choices. So, yeah.
Possibly, possibly. I mean, I did, when I was done watching this episode, I did think perhaps it was well paired with the Bird of Paradise because Nakime and Bird of Paradise was had this fear of death, and she was looking to do anything to prevent herself from dying. But then she embraces that possibility at the end, and then she truly lives. She really finds a way forward. Whereas this guy, I'm not even sure what his name is, he's running away, like also running away from the possibility of death. And he's thinking back to all these other things that he doesn't want to give up. And I'm not even sure exactly what happens to him. He ends up on a snow planet at one point. I mean, I don't even know where that came from because that's not where the Death Star was. And, but part of him is like encouraging to, I don't know. Like I said, at some point, I'm going to have to force myself to watch it again so that I can try and make sense of this because it is going to bug me, but I just don't want to. So,
I
uh,
get it. Well, I'm
yeah.
wondering if like the whole like ice planet thing could have been a flashback to Hoth, and maybe the Death Star could be the second Death Star.
Well, it is supposed to be
You
the
know what
second
I
Death Star as
mean?
best I can tell based on the way the Death
Yeah.
Star looked. It was incomplete. I didn't understand
Mhm.
the point of having that X-Wing fly into it in a way we'd never seen before and then crash. But,
Mhm.
uh, yeah. Okay. Well, enough of that. I don't even need to give this a grade. I think everyone can tell what I think of it. But
And
I did,
I'm pretty much with you. Yeah.
yeah. So we've now completed our coverage here. We got 9 episodes. The Duel, Payback, The Song of Four Winds, The Ninth Jedi, Child of Hope, The Bounty Hunters, The Lost Ones rather, Yuko's Treasure, The Smuggler, The Bird of Paradise, and Black. I won't ask you to rank all 9 of them because that might be hard to do on the spot. But what's your top 3 on these?
Okay. Well, I actually did sit down and rank them all because I figured we were going to
Oh,
to
well, I did
talk
too.
about it
So
tonight.
fantastic. Okay.
So, yeah, so definitely I would say 1, and then 1A for me is Ronan the Dual Payback. I mean,
Hmm.
hello, we both love that one so much. And The Bird of Paradise. I loved that one. I really, really did. So, and I would say that there's still a pretty decent margin between the two of those. So I
Hmm.
guess I would say The Bird of Paradise is definitely number 2. The Smuggler for me is number 3. Then followed by The Bounty Hunters, Ninth Jedi, Child of Hope, The Lost Ones, Song of Four Winds, and then Yuko's Treasure and Black at the
Our
end.
lists are actually very similar, with just a couple key differences. So I had The Dual Payback as number 1, The Smuggler is number 2, which you had 3, Bounty Hunters is 3, which you had 4. The Lost Ones, I had 4. You had 6. Song of the Four Winds, I had 5. You had 7. The Bird of Paradise, I had 6, which you had 2. The Ninth Jedi, Child of Hope, I had 7, which you had 5. And then we both agreed on Yuko's Treasure and Black being 8 and 9. I didn't think I was going to have one after Yuko's Treasure when we talked about that a few weeks ago. But
oh, I kind of figured. I was thinking in the back of my mind, oh, but you haven't seen Black yet.
No.
And because I started with that one, and I know you so well, I knew where it would end up.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting.
But
no, like I said, we've been doing this since 2019, so we're nearly at 1,000 episodes of discussing Star Wars. Not to mention our Starship Savers and Scoundrels days, where we have another 100 episodes of talking about things. But at any rate, it's what stood out to me here is that, and I look, you liked The Bird of Paradise better than I did, but there is such a discrepancy between my episodes that are at the top and the episodes that are at the bottom on this list. And I don't remember the last 2 seasons being like that at all. So
no, I agree. There were definitely some standout episodes, obviously, on both ends of the spectrum, but not as diverse as this one, I feel like. Yeah.
So, and I'm mindful of the fact that each one of these is going to be someone's favorite episode. Just because I didn't like it, that doesn't mean someone else doesn't love it. And I'm also mindful of the fact that it's not, we can have differences of opinion, but that doesn't make it fun to listen to someone trash something that you love. And so I do apologize, people, for that. But it just, I got to be honest, those did not work for me. I hope they work for somebody, Yuko's Treasure and Black, but they just did not work for me.
And please let us know what did work for you. And because Dennis and I are always up for listening to opinions from every side of things. So we're always open for sure.
All right. Well, there you have it. That is our coverage of Volume 3 of Visions. So thank you for joining us for the past, what is it? I guess we did 5 episodes on this. We hope that contributed to your engagement with this anthology of episodes. And we'd love to, like Jay said, we'd love to hear what you think about them. So she'll give you our social media contacts here in just a bit, and you can let us know those things. But if you enjoyed this episode, and despite the fact how negative we were, I really hope you did. And if not, come back for another one. But we'll be a little more positive next time. But please consider subscribing to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. And we'd appreciate it if you could rate and review the show while you're there. I'd like to remind you can find the entire catalog of shows over on retrozap.com, as well as all the other great shows that are on the network. And Jay, we'll go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are one more time and where else we can be found online.
Absolutely. And we're nothing if not honest, right? So we're on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And you can also check out our plethora of Pinterest boards. And while you're at it, you can also tune in to our 2 YouTube outlets at the traditional YouTube, as well as YouTube Music. And both of those do actually support interactions, comments, that kind of thing. So please leave us some comments and subscribe, share that with your friends as well. And then you can also email us at podcaststardust@gmail.com. So you can let us know what you thought that way. You can also send us questions. And when we have enough, we will put them together in a listener question episode. And we would really love to do that. I'm speaking for both Dennis and I on that one. So please drop us a line. And if you are in need of a new Podcast Stardust t-shirt, sweatshirt, coffee mug, or the like, you can also head over to TeePublic. And the link to that is going to be in our show notes.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we'll be getting into an early edition of World Between Worlds. So Jay can help you finish up your holiday shopping for the Star Wars fans in your life. And then on Friday, we'll be wrapping up the week's Star Wars news. So thanks for listening to episode 975 of Podcast Stars, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be